I abused my victims, mutilated them, pulled the casings out of their bodies and tied them around them. Welcome to my cruel world. I am Delphine Lowry, a wealthy 19th century slave owner, and this is my story. I was born Delphine McCarty in the year 1787 in New Orleans. My parents were wealthy plantation owners, and I grew up in a privileged environment. After two of my wealthy husbands had already died young, I finally married Leonard Wallery, a physician, in 1825. 6 years later, we purchased land to build a stately home at 1140 Royal Saint like most other socialists in America at the time. We owned many slaves who worked for us. They were hired to do small jobs around the house, but behind this facade was a dark secret. I was a cruel and sadistic woman who abused and tortured her slaves. I enjoyed hearing their screams and seeing them writhe in pain. I even had a chamber in the attic of my house where I locked my victims in cages, mutilated them, and chopped off their body parts. The neighbors kept reporting loud arguments and screams coming from my house. There were already rumors about my barbaric treatments. My marriage failed again and officially dissolved in 1834. That same year, a fire broke out at a party in the house, which had started from the kitchen. When the firemen and police rushed into the house to bring the fire under control, they found my 70-year-old black slave chained to the stove. She confessed that she started the fire because she feared the punishment I would give her. Finally, she led the police to the attic, where another 7 slaves were chained and wore collars with pointed iron bars. At the same time, I was already fleeing New Orleans with Leonhard, but what my neighbors found in the face of the fire made their breath stop. Starved and scarred slaves were chained there, 7 of them more or less terribly mutilated, suspended by the neck, their limbs stretched and torn apart. One man wore a neck iron and an old woman who had a deep wound on her head. Some wore spikes on their necks that prevented them from moving their heads. Some were literally flayed by the flogging. They were naked and some were locked in cages. After we escaped, we were never seen again. In all, we had at least 54 slaves between 1816 and 1834, and to this day their screams are said to be heard from our house.